Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram.
Happy spring training, everybody. Welcome into season 3. Kind of crazy to think about of Concrete Jungle and New York Baseball Podcasts here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here with you once again. Some bases to cover today. Not exactly all that big for a change heading into spring training, but plenty to get to. Kyle, we got through the winter. We're through the Super Bowl, and happy to say that spring is right here on the doorstep as the Yankees and the Mets have reported to spring training down in Florida.
Yeah, first off, that 3-year thing caught me off guard. I didn't realize it's already been 3 years, but yeah, super excited. I've been waiting for it. I think spring training goes a little too long in my opinion, but I get that pitchers need to build up, but 34 games on the Yankees schedule this year just seems like a bit too much. But hey, we're here. I'm excited. I'm seeing baseball content all over, and I love it.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's nothing super crazy going on right now, but there has been some minor stuff that needs to be mentioned here with each team. So, let's begin, Kyle, with the Yankees down in Tampa, Florida for spring training there. Let's begin with signing for the bullpen. Lou Trivino back in pinstripes, right-handed reliever, brought back on a 1-year deal. There's a club option for 2025. So we know missed all of last year, recovering from Tommy John. He was non-tendered in the offseason back in November, so it kind of makes me wonder, and maybe it's a better question for a more macro side of things, the way we've seen free agency kind of play out this year, what kind of maybe took so long. Trevino's certainly has ups and his downs, 32 years old, and the Yankees bring him back, as I said, on pretty much what's a 1-and-1 type deal for, I'd say, maybe some other sports people out there who know what that means. So it's interesting. This is a Yankee bullpen that I was personally kind of content with, actually, just kind of moving forward into the season, only because the way I view the bullpens now, unless it's just like one of those like really good guys, say, and this is going to be a name that we might be talking about later on here for both the Yankees and Mets as the season progresses on, like a Devin Williams type pitcher, like a Josh Hader type pitcher. Unless it's something along those lines, I don't have a problem riding with people because usually you can call up a guy and they make an impact, or there's always arms available somewhere. So I was kind of surprised to see the Yankees make this move. Frankly, yesterday when it got announced, and it was kind of just like, okay, interesting. Thought we were fine with what we had, but apparently the Yankees thought otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing the Yankees have been lacking this past offseason now. They didn't go out and really strengthen the bullpen as much as I thought they needed to do it. They've added, the arms, the veteran arms, the guys that have experience, but they're not elite arms like you're mentioning, Devin Williams and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't really like this Lou Trivino signing. He actually didn't have Tommy John until May, so he did pitch a month last year. And he said this morning, that he doesn't expect to return until midsummer. So it's just like the signing really doesn't mean much by the time he gets built back up. Who knows if he's even going to have a spot. Doesn't mean, when he's healthy, he's just going to immediately be in the bullpen. Yeah. He's a 32-year-old arm that's just coming off Tommy John. He might not be that effective anymore. Yeah. So this is just like I don't know. I don't know really why they did it. It's shocking to me.
And you could make the case that, was he really effective in the first place?
Yeah.
This was a guy who, like I said, I mean, when he had his moments, he's a really good piece to have, but, man, there's a lot of valleys with him. Kind of funny because when we get to the Mets, we'll be talking about that as well with one of the guys they brought in here recently. But, yeah, I don't know. And then, it kind of ties in here with this next portion of it. We did have a trade again yesterday for the Yankees. Left-hand pitcher Clayton Andrews acquired from the Brewers. Minor leaguer right-hand pitcher Joshua Quezada sent to Milwaukee. Quezada, I think, was only playing more or less A-ball, I think it was, 19 years old. For Andrews, spent 4 games with Milwaukee last year, but most of the year with AAA Nashville. So another lefty arm brought in for the Yankees in the bullpen here. This one seems more of just like a depth piece type move. It kind of makes me, again, you combine that with what we saw with the sign of Trivino, this kind of makes me kind of scratch the head a little bit. Like, I guess it's depth, more than anything else. But, for a guy who I think, and I don't have the stats exactly in front of me, but I think he gave up I want to say it was 4 runs and about 33 innings of work at the big league level last year. It doesn't get me overly excited, especially for a bullpen arm.
He's actually only appeared in 4 big league games.
Right.
3 innings.
Oh, that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah,
I know who I'm thinking of now.
27 years old, 3 innings at the big league level, all of last year, 27 ERA. He has success in AAA, but yeah, again, it seems like all the moves they've made, mostly for the bullpen this offseason, have just been these guys that haven't really had major league success. Yeah. It's weird. It's like they all already think, oh, we're just gonna have them figure it out. It's like Matt Blake's gonna turn them into Ian Hamilton, for example. That was a guy that was a surprise last year.
Yeah, and I mean, to go further back, it's almost like they. And I don't know. It's almost like they're trying to get things like you mentioned Matt Blake, but deeper back than that, like Clay Holmes from now 2 years ago, stuff like that. I don't know if you can catch lightning as many times as they're trying to do, right? I mean, Holmes admittedly regressed last year. I would expect, unfortunately, Ian Hamilton to have some sort of regression this year. It's just the way it is. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. If you were looking to get a bullpen piece, why didn't, as a front office, they go after a Phil Maton? I already mentioned Josh Hader, so I won't go there. But, guys were available. And guys have been available on the trade market as well, right? I mean, it's more than likely, and I brought his name up already, but it's more than likely we will see Devin Williams get moved at some point this year from Milwaukee, unless they kind of go out and do some guns blazing stuff in the NL Central to get the year going, which I could see, but, trading away Corbin Burns is kind of, I don't want to say waving the white flag, but you're about waving the white flag as best you can be if you're a team, I suppose, when you trade away your ace. So I don't know. And, you look around the big leagues as well at some of the other trades, and, I'm not, I don't think a guy like Steve Okirk is, a shutdown guy in the bullpen, right? But, I mean, the Marlins traded him away to the Twins. The Twins wanted to beef up their bullpen. They trade away a guy who's injury-prone and Nick Gordon to get a bullpen arm like that. I mean, there are names available on the trade market that have proven track records in the big leagues and not guys who appear to be quad-A players, quite frankly.
Yeah, and when we found out yesterday that Scott F. Ross had back surgery 2.5 months ago, I immediately thought, wow, are you serious? They knew this for 2.5 months and they still didn't try to be aggressive for a reliever? And then I thought immediately of Keenan Middleton. Why wasn't he brought back?
Yeah.
I get it. It's on a top-tier piece, but it's a guy that can fill the void and can be productive. I mean, he was pretty good his limited time with the Yankees last year. I'm shocked at what they did with the bullpen, and maybe they have a plan. Maybe they're going to be super aggressive at the deadline, but it scares me to start the season the way this bullpen is.
Yeah, and I mean, there are guys, available still on the market. I mean, the main one that comes to mind, even though I guess he's really been more of a starter now the past couple of years, but, Mike Lorenzen's still available on the market. Again, he's been more of a starter this year, or the past couple of years, but, he's been in the bullpen before. I mean, there's a guy there you could bring in. Did Robertson sign with anybody? I don't think I saw his.
Question.
I don't think he technically signed. I don't think he's with anybody yet either, right? It's just one of those things where it's like, you're good. It's just one of those things where guys are available, and if you're going bargain hunting.
I just thought about it. What Robertson are you talking about?
David.
Yeah, Rangers.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my point being, right, there are guys available. There still are guys available. Why are the Yankees doing the bargain hunting again? I just don't get it.
Yeah.
And furthermore, not to be, I guess, that guy with it, but if you're going to do the Clayton Andrews move, and I know he got moved in a trade that brought over another guy in Victor Gonzalez, but like,
You have Nick Ramirez.
right,
Why?
you had Matt Gage. You might have moved to go get Matt Gage even, and then you send him away. So like, I don't know what the plan is with some of these guys at this point. Obviously, it's more depth. It's just more insurance should one of these guys go down, right? But like, the bargain hunting thing's kind of wild to me, especially in an offseason where the Yankees were trying to make big splashes. They were able to get a big splash with Juan Soto and a semi-big splash with Marcus Stroman. And after that, it's been a lot of just back to the clearance rack, it seems like.
Yeah, it feels like they're kind of banking on Luis Gil, who's coming off Tommy John as well, to be a very important piece. Luke Weaver, they might stretch him out in spring training just in case there's an injury or something, but I would expect him to be in the bullpen, with Clark Schmidt getting the 5th spot. But yeah, the Victor Gonzalez trade, the Caleb Ferguson trade, I don't know, it's just surprising to me.
Yeah. Let's go into another roster move here that it piqued my interest because this is a name that, if you've been following baseball, especially within the AL East, this name will resonate from about 2 or 3 years ago now. Infielder Jordan Groshans was claimed off of waivers from Miami by the Yankees. Jordan spent all of 2023 with AAA Jacksonville in the Miami system, playing primarily first and third base for the Jumbo Shrimp. He was traded to Miami from Toronto back in 22, spent some time with the Marlins in 22, didn't spend it all last year with them. Former top prospect of Toronto, 24 years old. I'm really intrigued to see what the Yankees kind of have in store for him, only because, and I say this, he's a former top prospect, still very young at 24, but has now jumped between 3 organizations in a pretty short amount of time, albeit a forced trade on one and then, relinquishing his rights on the other. I don't know exactly what his plan is. They'd create a 40-man spot for him. Matt Crook was DFA'd for it. I'm intrigued. It feels like it tells me, if I'm being completely honest, Kyle, the infield to some degree for the Yankees is still to be determined, at least on the back end. And what I mean by that is he's going to be competing with your Perazzas, your Cabreras for these kind of backup roles, frankly, and maybe not quite on the bench, but, being the top flight guy that would be the first on scene, if you will, should LeMahieu or Torres or Volpe or obviously Rizzo as well go down. Is he this top guy that people thought he might be? Maybe not, but I don't think it's exactly fair to throw him in the trash bin yet, like Miami kind of thought about doing. So, I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me if he starts here at AAA Scranton, but at the same token, if we were to come back here in July and be like, oh, Groshans is just like batting 6th in the lineup today for the Yankees, I'd be like, yeah, probably, fair enough.
Yeah, especially because every year it's injuries. But,
Right.
the problem with that is he's going to have competition. Because remember, they've made a lot of these types of moves. Josh Van Meter, who's the other one? Kevin Smith.
Yep.
It seems like they've made a lot of minor league depth piece moves all winter long on top of the big trades that they have made. Juan Soto, and then the Stroman signing.
Yeah.
But it seems like they're just so content with these depth pieces. It's unreal.
Now, the only saving grace to me with the Groshans one is the fact that he is young. And I know it's relative speaking, right? Van Meter's still young and stuff like that, but Groshans' name for 2 seasons carried a lot of weight in the pipeline talk for the Blue Jays, to the point that he was the one that was the odd man out when they bet on Kevin Biggio and Bo Bichette a couple of years ago, and it kind of became a dispensable piece. They traded in Miami to, I believe that was the Adam Simber and Zach Pop trade, if I remember correctly. There's some immaculate grid knowledge coming out on that one, but Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think maybe I'm just more on the optimistic end of things with him because he is young, because he is this heralded former top prospect that, like I said, does he live up? Maybe not the exact right comparison now, but like there were comparisons to him to being like the next Derek Jeter for a minute. Like there just was a few years ago when he was at the top of the pipeline lists. Do I see that happening for him now? No, I do not. But I could see him kind of playing out to be, maybe like an Orlando Cabrera type shortstop. I know that's a name that probably people don't fully remember, but, that was a shortstop that was a big role piece for a lot of winning teams back in the day. And, was a very good defensive, what we call now plus defense, plus bat players. On that first tier of great, no. But probably hanging around that second tier where it's like, damn, that's really good. Does that happen with the Yankees and Groshans? Don't know. I don't see where he exactly fits in that grand scheme like we were talking about, right, Kyle? But for what it is, and you can stash him and say he goes out. Now, this is the interesting part with him. When he was up with Miami at the end of 22, he was batting at pretty much at 300 and above. They started him at AAA last year. That was the plan, and he stuck there because he couldn't get his batting average above 250. If he comes out, and I'm assuming he's going to start the year at Scranton because I'm assuming they're probably going to give him full playing time commitment in that sense. If he comes out and bats somewhere in that 280 to 300 range, I'm willing to bet that the Yankees might try and parlay that into a trade later on down the line. Because if that happens, I think teams start sniffing around. They talk the way I'm talking, where it's like, this guy, former top prospect, he's showing the stuff again, It might be worth a flyer for a team when the Yankees go out and maybe try and get a rental or make a move for a piece. I'm spitballing here a little bit on that one, but I think that's what the Yankees' plan for Groshans probably is.
Yeah, I would be surprised, if he did make the team, just because you have Everson Pereira, Oswald Peraza, Rortvet's already, going to not make the roster because Austin Wells and Jose Trivino are the catchers. So there's not enough bench options.
Well, the Trivino one's interesting. We haven't talked about that. That wasn't one of the main talking points I had today, but it's interesting you brought him up because he also was one of the players that had a what we'll call a quieted injury report that got unraveled yesterday. But it's going to be interesting, I think, for the Yankees. They have a lot of, albeit maybe not tier one, but they got a lot of talent kind of hanging around that AAA roster this year. So it makes you wonder. It does make you wonder. All right, let's get to a couple more things here before we transition over to the Mets. Aaron Boone spoke with the media for the first time yesterday. The one quote that really stuck out to me, and I want to talk about here a little bit. We're hell-bent on being a champion. We understand very well that last year was not anything anyone in this organization wants or demands or expects. My takeaway from that quote, and I've seen a couple different ways people have taken it, and I don't think many people, I've seen a couple people say it, but I haven't seen many people do it the way I'm about to phrase it. I'm just happy somebody just kind of said the quiet part out loud for a change from the Yankees, outside of like the players. We heard the players last year vent frustrations, right? Whether it be Judge or Cole, more or less. The fact that somebody on the management side has finally said something proves to me that there is some frustration somewhere along the line about maybe not a particular individual, but maybe just a collective thought or group of individuals. It does make me wonder, and I brought up this point to a friend of mine the other day, when the Yankees hired Brad Ausmus as their bench coach, it does make you wonder about the thought process of Brian Cashman and higher-ups in regards to what they feel about Aaron Boone, actually. And it makes me wonder if there is maybe a little bit of disconnect between the people down in the dugout, and I'm saying that because I'm combining players and coaching staff on this one with the people up in the suites. Because for a long time, and I said it on here, I've felt that like if you fire Aaron Boone, you're just going to get a Cashman puppet in anyway. And the main issue is probably up top with Cashman. So I'm beginning to wonder if Boone and Cashman aren't exactly as in line as we think sometimes. Now, Cashman did say during the offseason, he did have quotes similar to what Aaron Boone said yesterday. But Boone is the first one from management to just outright say it in terms of, like, we sucked. It can't happen again, more or less. So for me, I'm expecting the people in the dugout, the way I'm phrasing it again, to be legit hell-bent, like Boone said, on not finishing in fourth this year and getting an AL East title at the very least. I can't imagine anybody, in theory, is safe if the Yankees don't make the playoffs next year. From coaching staff to front office to probably most of the roster, if I'm being completely honest. So I think coming out of the gates in spring training with that mindset and a coach, manager saying that and taking that head on, I'm taking that as a good sign for the season ahead.
Yeah, and I took it as a good sign that they finally, parted with prospects and Michael King, who they just really didn't want to get rid of, to get Juan Soto. It seems like any other year, they probably just would have held their foot down and not have done it.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with, past big guys like Bryce Harper, Randy Machado, all those top guys that were linked to the Yankees and that just never fell through. That's why that Garrett Cole signing was so surprising to me, because the Yankees just don't do that anymore. But finally they went out and got a superstar in Juan Soto, and that right there to me showed that they're serious about how bad it was last year, how embarrassing it was, and that they want to turn, the corner.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great to see that Boone says it on day one, and then you have Garrett Cole today speaking about the injuries.
Yeah, I didn't get that down in time on my note sheet, but yeah, he said that, kind of as a group, they can't allow that to happen this year.
He said we get injured too much as a group, we need to improve.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And he's the one that stays healthy.
Yeah.
The only one that probably stays healthy.
More or less.
So he's the guy that I do want to hear him say that. So.
Yeah, he was, pretty much one of, I don't know the exact number. I'm ballparking it here off the top of my head. Probably one of, maybe 5 or 6 guys who didn't miss extended time at all last year for one reason or another on the team.
Yeah.
I might be underestimating it by a hair, but, that's just the way it felt like,
Yeah, it looks like Garrett Cole hasn't landed on the IL since September 7th, 2021.
Yeah, so.
The guy just stays healthy, and he goes out there and does his job, and it's great to see.
Yeah. All right, speaking of jobs, last thing on the docket here for the Yankees, their minor league coaching staff, like all teams have been announced at this point. Shelley Duncan returning as the manager at AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Raul Dominguez returning at AA Somerset as well. The A clubs is where you see a lot of change. Typically is where you see a lot of change anyway in minor league baseball, but kind of here nor there. High A Hudson Valley, Nick Ortiz becomes the manager, and at Tampa, James Cooper is your new manager. And I did want to put in note here, Single A Tampa, new pitching coach, and Yankee fans of our kind of generation here might recognize this name, but your pitching coach for the Tampa Tarpons this year, Preston Claiborne, transitioning. This is, I'm pretty sure, his first full-time coaching role at the minor league level, but a former Yankee prospect pitcher, pitched a couple seasons collectively for the Yankees in 16 and 17. Didn't spend, obviously, full seasons with the team, but had some games. I believe his last major league appearance was with the Rangers in 2019, 18 or 19, I'm pretty sure. So he comes back to the Yankees organization as a minor league pitching coach.
Yeah, it was actually longer than that. He was with the Yankees in 2013 and 2014.
Oh, wow.
And his last year was 2017 with the Rangers.
I'm a little bit off on that.
Yeah, his best year was 2014, it looks like, with the Yankees. So, yeah, 3 ERA. Only 3 seasons, though. It's I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that happens with people, unfortunately. So, all right, let's transition over to the Mets here, Kyle. I want to begin here with a pretty interesting note that I saw come across my radar, of course, the past couple days. Not just, obviously, pitchers and catchers, they're the deadline to report across baseball. Pretty much was this morning for some teams. I believe the Yankees and Mets were both yesterday. But, for the most part, everybody's there for the teams now at this point in spring training. That includes Mark Vientos. So the Mets have an interesting situation on their hands involving a lot of these young guys. Now, it kind of helps in a way. Doesn't help fully that Ronnie Mauricio is out here for a while. But it does solve a little bit of a bottleneck of these young prospects, primarily infielders. And Mark Vientos is one of them. So I'm going to begin with this quote here that he had and go from here. He's trying to quiet the noise. Now, what could this be about? Well, the Mets don't have a true DH this year at this moment. They struck out on getting Teoscar Hernandez and a couple other guys like Justin Turner. And so they might be going in-house for DH, and that might belong to Mark Vientos. Now, he recognizes the opportunity. He said it on the back end of the quote about what might be lying ahead for him, and he's not going to be afraid to seize that opportunity should he get it. But it does solve an issue for the Mets. You keep Vientos' bat in the lineup, and furthermore, you solve a little bit of that bottleneck with the infielder situation with all these young prospects. Vientos, probably the bottom of the three in terms of fielding between him, Mauricio, and Brett Baty. Brett Baty's going to get most of the work at third base. Shortstop, obviously, is going to belong to Lindor. First base is Pete Alonso. And second base, who's it going to be, actually, at the end of the day? Joey Wendell, maybe? But, it's one of those things where the Mets have a good problem to have. You have talent. You're trying to figure out where to put it. And Vientos' bat, we all know, is really good. And it would solve an immediate need at DH for the Mets. Now, there is one name to keep in mind here. That is J.D. Martinez, who is still available, and the Mets are talking. But who isn't talking to J.D. Martinez at this point, since he's still available? But if you're Mark Vientos, I would take advantage of the opportunity. The DH now is a positively viewed position in baseball, as it has now become over the course of the past decade or so. You find yourself in the lineup every day. You get back in the field every now and then, presumably, when, say, your Pete Alonso-type players just want a semi-day off but still hit. Lineup-wise, it might see some work because Brett Baty, left-handed hitter, maybe you take him out against lefties and you find yourself playing third base again every now and then. It's an interesting spot for one of these top prospects that the Mets have.
Yeah, I think Joey Wendell and Jeff McNeil will probably rotate at second because your outfielders are going to be Bader, Nimmo, and Marte.
Yeah.
So, yeah, McNeil does play the outfield, but now with Bader there, I'm not sure how much time he's going to get in the outfield other than, if there's off days or, of course, an injury. But, yeah, I think Vientos, being the DH, if they don't go and, say sign Martinez, that's a good bat to have at DH.
Yeah. My question here is, if you're the Mets, now you mentioned a couple guys that, well, we collectively did, but you mentioned really their main one on bat was probably Harrison Bader that they brought in via free agency. If you're the Mets, I still feel like you got to make a really good push here at JD at the end of the day. I know it goes against what I just said about Mark, but if you're the Mets, you want to try and get some sort of splash in free agency at this point. I feel like J.D. Martinez kind of accomplishes that for a team that I think people, and this will be more for a couple weeks down the line when we really do our true predictions and outlook on the season. But for a team that I think a lot of people have viewed as an afterthought of sort this year in the NL East, I don't see that. I see them as a spot to be able to still go out there and compete for the division title, admittedly. I feel like J.D. Martinez really closes that gap to the Phillies and the Braves if you are the Mets, in my opinion anyway. I could be off base, but I view his bat as still being a really good bat. I mean, he goes out to the Dodgers, was an all-star last year, kind of had I wouldn't say a reclamation year. It's not like he was really down the couple years prior, but it wasn't what we were used to JD the past few years. And then last year kind of seemed to be the year where it was he can still get this done. He can still go out there and give you some stats.
Yeah, I agree that JD would be a good bat to have, but don't forget about DJ Stewart and Tyrone Taylor, the other guy that they acquired. But yeah, DJ Stewart, remember how he finished the year?
Yeah.
He was one of their better hitters at the end of the year, other than Pete Alonso, of course.
Yeah.
Lindor, but yeah, I don't know. We're started spring training. Martinez hasn't signed. Clearly, maybe it's a money thing, or he's looking for a contender.
Well, and the wild part about it is, I don't want to single out Martinez in this for the Mets. They could go after it. I'm going to say another name here that I think, if you're the Mets, I'm surprised you aren't at least knocking. But Adam Duvall's available too as well.
True.
there are some guys. I mean, I know he doesn't fit exactly their match, but like, Whit Merrifield's out there. Obviously not a DH role, but there's a solid bat. Like, there's some guys out there that you can go and get. I mean, it's kind of crazy that, I want. Is it kind of like Conforto? Those players, they're Conforto level players, right? In a way.
Yeah.
So.
What about
names?
This is more of a joke. I should have waited to tell you it was a joke, though.
Uh-oh.
Cody Bellinger, DH, Mets.
You say it's a joke, but like I don't hate it.
I know, but I just
You know what I
don't
mean?
give him that type of money.
Oh, in that sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't hate it. I don't hate the principle of it. I'll place it that way.
Lefty bat.
Right.
Can DH, can play the outfield. I don't know.
Yeah. Can also give you innings at first if push came really to shove. So. All right, let's talk about a couple of players the Mets have brought in here recently. Begin with right-hand pitcher Shintaro Fujinami. Now, if you're like me, a sicko in the betting world, Fujinami was a guy that you would love to see pop up on your radar when he was in Oakland A last year. Tide shifted, though, when he got traded to Baltimore in his rookie year last year. Kind of found his footing in the bullpen with the Orioles a little bit. But it's a pretty interesting piece. This is a really young kid who comes over from Japan last year. Bit of a roller coaster year. But I kind of like the spot with the Mets for him, if anything, because he's with Kodai Senga. And a guy who I think culturally he can put under his wing, be a nice kind of just big brother figure almost for the kid, right? And it's a one-year deal. If you're the Mets, I like it. I think there's more upside than downside to this deal. Gives you depth rotationally, especially with David Peterson out for a long time with the hip issue. And gives you the flexibility too, right? I mean, he can start, he can go out of the bullpen. I kind of like this move for the Mets. I really do. I think, it's one of those things where I look at it and like, yeah, still probably would have preferred a guy like, I won't bring his name up again because he probably would work really well for the Mets. Michael Lorenzen, right?
Well, that's why they went out and got Jorge Lopez. That was their move. Remember that?
Yeah.
What was that, in December?
Give or take.
And then they bring back Adam Ottavino, who they non-tendered.
Similar to the Trivino thing.
Yep. And what else? They got Phil Bickford, Jake Diekman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Yankees, honestly. They don't have like a lot of their moves for the bullpen have just kind of been lower tier moves, I would say.
Yeah. Now, they also bring in a depth piece in Ben Gamel, the outfielder, former Yankee prospect. Spent last year with the Padres organization, most of it with AAA El Paso. Did play in a handful of games with the Padres last year. Good veteran kind of player to just kind of have around in the depth side of things and compete. Main competition in that will be Taylor Colway and Trace Thompson. If you go looking, though, it seems like the expectation will probably be Ben in Syracuse, though, to start the year. But I love this signing for the Mets. It might be because I know I've met Ben a couple times. I like this place. I like his play style. It's kind of the play style I like having, where it's speed, kind of cause some chaos, slap ball, if you will, type player. But if you're the Mets, this is a good signing, and they've done these signings now the past couple of years, right, where they bring in these veteran bats, especially in the outfield, and push comes to shove, they usually find themselves up in the big leagues at some point. I mean, last year in particular, think about it, you brought up DJ Stewart, right, Kyle? Well, same thing with like Rafael Ortega and Abraham Almonte last year. Like, they all had moments with the Mets last year that stuck out. So if you're Ben, I really like this signing. It brings you back on the East Coast, back closer to family and stuff like that. I know that. So, I don't hate it. I don't hate it for the Mets, but also coming from a guy who I do have some stock, I guess, in Ben Gamel. So I'm really rooting hard for him.
Yeah, nice step piece. Probably him, and I don't know, is Tyrone Taylor going to be able to get a roster spot?
Yeah, so
it's tough with the bench.
Yeah.
When you start off the year, you usually carry an extra pitcher, and that's what might send him down to AAA. Yeah. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the one thing, and the tough part is too, especially we'll give you guys no pun intended here, behind baseball moment here with this. each team signs these players in minor league contracts, right? But not all of them get invited to spring training. Some people, when they sign a minor league contract, like, you're outright going to AAA, and that's that. So these rosters for AAA are already kind of semi-compiled as is too. And, you bring up a good point with Taylor, right? Like, what if his spot isn't even there with Syracuse, hypothetically? Because the Mets might have spots they want prospects to be starting at AAA right away and going, right? Or, they want 2 veterans with a rookie out in the center field for AAA, stuff like that, right? So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, I'm with you. I think what you do with Taylor is a good question. But I don't know. It remains to be seen, right? The tough part is we won't know from the outside until really the first couple of games of spring training get underway, and the first clips of these position players are out there, where it's like you can kind of get the vibe of how they're feeling based on like what groups they're with. I always look at it like this way too. You can kind of tell how a team views a player based on the coaching staffs around him, and what I mean by that is like I always go to the Yankees on this one side of things. From 2010-ish, give or take, when he was still floating around with the Yankees. Like when Nick Swisher would be primarily with, like, say, Reggie Jackson for spring training, right? You have an idea of who's going to be where based on, like, who they're kind of coaching with and hanging out with for drills. So I guess we'll see more on that as the time comes. All right. Let's get into a couple other things here with the Mets. And part of this, too, I want to talk about because it's a bigger major league issue here on this topic. The Mets are among 9 teams getting either they are getting their City Connect jerseys this year, or are getting a refresh of their City Connect jerseys, as is the case with one team. But these jerseys have been a topic of discussion, the City Connects, across major league sport because of Nike's contracts with now MLB and the NBA. A lot of people see it as a money grab. I think when they're done right, they're done really well. I know this isn't a Washington Nationals podcast exactly, but I'm kind of depressed that this is the final year of the Cherry Blossoms City Connect jerseys for them. They're one of my favorites. Some of them are done really well. Some of them are done terribly. For the Mets, I'm really intrigued to see what they come up with because the Mets have a very unique history for their jerseys. Their color scheme combines the 2 teams that left New York in the National League, being the Giants with their orange and the Dodgers with their blue. So I don't know, in essence, how they're going to swing this. I have a gut feeling, Kyle, that the Mets might have a lot centered on their City Connect jersey on the Big Apple, I'll call it. The home run apple that pops up in the outfield. I don't think that'll be like, say, exactly what they're going with, but I think that'll probably have a big part in it. Other than that, and this is the part that sucks, Nike really enjoys ruining things that teams really love as, like, cult things. In the NBA, they ruined the Heat culture thing this year by having that as their City Connect jersey in the NBA, or City Edition as they call it there. I'm afraid that they're going to run with one of the Mets fan base taglines of the 7 line. I'm kind of afraid they might pull that, and I don't want them to take kind of a thing that's just a cult fan favorite and take it mainstream and frankly ruin it. I think that's my main concern with the City Connect jersey in this regard. I don't know if your thoughts are kind of in line with me, or if you have a different thought about how you think they might kind of look here. Nothing imminent on getting released at this point, but traditionally, Uniwatch has leaks of sort start trickling out in the weeks prior to launches.
Yeah, I'll be honest here because I don't want to, get into it really too much.
Yeah.
I don't really have many thoughts on these jerseys.
Really?
I am just surprised that the A's and the Yankees are the only ones without one. Maybe not surprised with the A's because they're just a dumpster fire.
Well,
but the Yankees, you would think
really?
maybe.
I'm the opposite way.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not surprised that the Yankees don't have a City Connect jersey. The A's are the ones that do surprise me. But I do agree with the fact that like they're going to be moving. Everything's a mess over there right now, so like I wouldn't want to touch it.
Yeah.
But like when they first did the City Connect, I'm surprised the A's weren't one of the first ones to kind of hop on board because of their kind of history within Oakland. I mean, they really lean heavy. Well, I don't know how much they're going to be leaning heavy this year. I need to preface it with that. But they really leaned heavy into the element of being like the Bay Area's team for a while, specifically on the Oakland side. I think a lot of times they had banners around Oco saying "For the Bay" and stuff like that, especially right after the Warriors kind of moved over to the San Fran side of it. That and their history too. I mean, they have one of the cooler histories, at least when they got to Oakland anyway. I mean, the swinging A's of the '70s when they won the titles and everything, and they have a really low-key, great secondary logo with the elephant that I don't know if you saw this, Kyle, in the batting practice hats this year. The elephant's back for the A's. So, yeah, I'm kind of the opposite of you, though. I'm surprised the A's don't, but not surprised that the Yankees don't anyway.
Yeah, I think it's just because all the other big market teams have them, and like you said, it's a money grab. So I thought, maybe the Yankees would be among those teams that were in on it, but maybe that's still coming. Who knows? But right now, nothing. And what did you think of the Yankees changing their road jerseys? Remember, getting rid of the white outline. It's the New York across.
I don't want to be that guy, but that's a nothing burger for me if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, I don't think
that's one of the things I won't even probably really notice.
Yeah, it's not a huge deal. It's weird that it was like a story.
Yeah. I do want to touch on, before we get to the last note about the Mets exactly, since we're on the topic of jerseys, what are your thoughts on the controversy going on right now throughout baseball with the new... Now, I need to preface it with this. I think a lot of people are getting things a little bit misconstrued to a degree, but there are player jerseys that are under this umbrella. With I forget what the exact phrasing of it is, but the type of jersey they're switching to this year, it looks like a disaster with the lettering and everything. And I know there's a quality issue too, apparently, with it because of the way the letters are. It's like messing up with like the back of the jersey for certain players. As a fan, I don't buy a lot of modern jerseys, admittedly. I have a lot of like retro jerseys, so I can't speak to, I guess, the baseball jerseys that have been coming out the past couple of years, but just the side-by-side of some of these jerseys from last year to this year, it is pretty godly. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I mean it's not good.
It looks like a jersey that was made in China. You know, that you would buy off from like a cheap like website that you wouldn't pay a lot of money for, and it's like very thin.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can just tell without even putting it on that it's probably not a good jersey.
You know what they look like?
What?
The Great Britain jerseys. From the World Baseball Classic last year.
Super thin, but I guess if you want to look at some sort of positive, if you're a team that's playing in hot weather and it's super hot out, at least it's thin on your skin. But other than that, there's no exact reason that you could back up the poor quality of this jersey. You have major league players that are making millions of dollars, and you're giving them this type of product. It's crazy.
Yeah. I'll do a Costanza here, cotton to polyester. But, it will be interesting to kind of see how things go here. So, Mets minor league coaching staffs announced we will table the Syracuse Met one here for a minute because we'll get to them, obviously, in a second. Double-A Binghamton manager Reed Brignac is returning. High-A manager of Brooklyn Gilbert Gomez, promoted from St. Lucie. He's now with Brooklyn this year. In St. Lucie, Eucaribert de la Cruz, he was a quality control guy within the Mets organization, gets the reins of St. Lucie. So we'll get out here on this note. The minor league teams here locally, Rochester and Syracuse. Rochester, their 4 coaches all coming back this year, headed by manager Matt Lecroy, hitting coach Brian Daubach, pitching coach Rafael Chavez, and development coach Billy McMillan all return. Great to see. I know the Nationals had some turnover in the minor league ranks this year, but if you read a little bit deeper, all the managers were safe, they deemed. It came down to positionally, and they must have liked what they saw out of Rochester kind of the past couple of years enough to run everything back with the Red Wings. On the Syracuse side of things, it's mostly everybody returning. Dick Scott back for a second year at the helm, hitting coach Colin Hetzler and bench coach JP Arancibia all return for year number 2. Development coach Adrian Texador joins from the Dominican Summer League. He'll be with Syracuse. And then new pitching coach with Syracuse this year, jumping over from the Yankee organization, is Grayson Crawford. So he'll get his first major coaching upgrade by joining the Mets organization and being the AAA pitching coach for them this year. So I like the fact that there's continuity in running it back. I think both clubs last year, and managers for that matter, had to deal with so much turnover on both sides that it was hard to kind of keep that continuity going that some other teams were able to have. If you look at, the better teams from AAA, specifically in the International League last year, like your Durham, like your Norfolk, they had pretty much the same rosters all year. Can't really say that about Rochester and Syracuse, the way those rosters were getting kind of flipped and turned over because of the big league clubs. So I like the fact they're running it back. I believe this is Matt Lecroy's third year in Rochester and that group's third year in Rochester. And obviously for Dick Scott and most of the crew with Syracuse, we're coming back for year number 2.
Yeah, it was definitely the right decision to bring back the managers. As you said, they didn't have control over sometimes how they were going on these losing streaks. The players are in and out. The Mets trade deadline, remember, ended up selling basically after nobody would have thought that. The Mets took most of their prospects. So, yeah, it would be unfair if they went and fired both of them.
And I know both guys have come out and said they really do like the fact that they're in Rochester with Lecroy, and Dick Scott's very big on Syracuse. I know he likes managing there, likes our area around here. So looking forward to year number 2. I know both. And again, we'll get into more about this in a couple weeks with them when we do some outlook when rosters become a bit more solidified. But, I know they both face off the opening series of the AAA season against each other this year in Syracuse to get it going on April 2nd, I believe it is. So we look forward to that as well. So that does it for our first Concrete Jungle of 2024. So we'll be bringing these back more on the regular side of things here as spring training ramps up. Won't be doing 2 episodes a week just yet like we normally do once the season gets going. But we'll be back again in no time here with another episode, maybe towards the end of next week or the beginning part of the week after. But we won't be leaving you for an extended period like we do in the winter months, that's for sure. So, Kyle, any parting shots here before we dip out?
Well, 6 weeks from today, opening day, March 28th, can't come soon enough, 42 days away. It seems like a lot, but I think it's going to come quick, and I'm super excited.
All right. Yeah, same. Looking forward to it. It's my favorite time of the year. Baseball gets going. Motorsports gets going. So, plus you get basketball and hockey down the stretch. Can't really complain. Yeah, playoffs. So, all right. On that note, appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. Find us on all major podcasting platforms. Find us on TikTok, FL1 Sports. Get that content rolling again. We've been doing a pretty good job over the winter with that. So like, share, subscribe, all the fun stuff. We'll talk again soon, everybody. Enjoy, and happy to say pitchers and catchers have reported.